Hello and welcome to yet another Formula 1 related video on this channel. Today we are ranking and discussing F1 drivers based on their performance so far this year. This is my opinion, so you might have a different opinion. I'm also going to try to explain why I put a driver in that place. For example, there might be drivers which have a higher placement in the driver standings, but will be lower placed here. Again, I'll try to give reasons why, and you're gonna see it. I don't think there's reason to delay this, so let's just start. In 21st, we have Jack Doohan. Whilst he could be easily matched Colapinto over there 6 races. The first 6 are first going to Doohan, and the latter is going to Colapinto. I still think that Colapinto gets marginally P20. They both had pretty bad part of the season they're in, and of course, neither did really that good. But why I'm putting Colapinto over Doohan is the fact that Colapinto, with a bit of luck, could have gotten points at some point, especially, I don't know, Austria, Canada could have been there. Also depends on the team strategy and of course the fact that, for example, in Imola, Colapinto crashed out in qualifying and could have done better first impression his first race weekend back this year. Also, Doohan is first race in Australia didn't do that well. So yeah, that's why I'm putting Doohan 21st and then Colapinto 20th. Now in 19th, and this might be controversial, I'm gonna have Yuki Tsunoda. Why? Because the Red Bull is the fourth fastest car on the grid, and he hasn't really shown that much with the car. I mean, of course, it might be related to the ever so popular and ever so similar other drivers facing in that situation. That second Red Bull driver is being, of course, kind of a bad omen for a lot of people. But why am I putting him in 19th? He scored 3 points with the Racing Bulls in China in the sprint race, and then only scored 7 more for Red Bull. Though, again, a lot of points came from the sprint, and in general, other than Miami, Bahrain, he hasn't really done that good. I think he scored points in Emilia Romagna too, but again, those I think was only 1 point. So yeah, in general, when you have the fourth fastest car, he cannot score at the amount of points you did. Hasn't scored for the last 5 races, and I might think his city is in danger if he doesn't improve. Now in 18th, and again this will be controversial, we have Carlos Sainz. Why? He scored, I believe, 13 points so far this season, and he's scored them in a kind of consistent uh, basis. But the idea that not in all weekends, but in most weekends so far, he's had the fifth fastest car, and it's being compared to Alex Albon. Alex Albon, which is the best of the rest of the grid, being eighth in the drivers, and Albon's been too consistent. Sainz hasn't, and the last few races, Albon has had a lot of mechanical problems. Carlos hasn't really had them that much, so he kinda is expected to do better. And we might see that other drivers have done worse than him. He don't have a car as good as him. He don't have the potential as Carlos Sainz has. That He's a multiple time race winner. Yeah, you understand. Oh yeah. Now in 17th, Oliver Berman. Why? Because he had a very good start to the season. He scored like 6 points in the first four races. He reached Q3 multiple times and he really looked promising. But since then, I don't think he scored a single point. He's had near misses. For example, I really like the. And I think it's really unfortunate that the stat that he's been 11th in the last three Grand Prix, I think, which again is really unfortunate. But still, even though he got ninth fastest car on the grid, probably the worst for some weekends. He needs to do a better job and kind of isn't there. I mean, even 11th place kind of seems a bit too much for what he, for how he has been performing in the last few races. Still though, he's got a lot of potential and he can show it easily. We've seen that. For example, in his first race in Saudi Arabia last year, and then even this year, I know China was a pretty good weekend for him. He has potential, he just needs to show it a little better. In 16th, we have, and this is controversial as well, Bortoleto. Why? He's probably had one of the worst average, and he has one of the worst average placements of the grid so far this season, and that's not good. But the explanation is that he is in a Sauber, and most of the season and most of last season, the Sauber was the worst car. Now, of course, the last few races have been different. Hülkenberg gets a podium, surprisingly, but he's Hülkenberg, so he's probably much better than a lot of the other midfield drivers. Um, Otherwise, yeah, Bortoleto only scored points in Austria with an eighth place, if I remember correctly. But still, for a rookie at what was for the beginning part of the season the worst car, what probably is considered one of the worst cars, even though they are six in the constructors now, he's done pretty good. That's why I'm putting him head of Tsunoda, head of Sainz, head of Perman, which have had consistently better cars. Well, I don't know if has, but yeah, we understand the logic. Now, in 15th, Stroll. Lance has had a pretty good start the season, then of course fallen off a cliff. Has fallen off a cliff and only lands occasional points, for example, in Great Britain with that rain. Still, and the man which might be considered by many as the worst on the grid has scored more points than Alonso, and even though I think he's behind him, by the way, Alonso, and we'll get to that, is 14th. Yeah, he's done pretty good. I mean, the Aston Martin has been difficult to drive. It hasn't been the same Aston Martin from the last few seasons, which was a bit better. And of course, 2023 was a lot better. But yeah, still though, he scored points more than many of the other midfield drivers, and that's why he is 15th. Now, Alonso 14th. Why is he ahead the Stroll? Because he's been a bit more consistent. Even though he's scored less, he's had a lot more. I mean, Stroll has been a lot more lucky than him. I mean, engine failures, I don't know, crashes, and not necessarily in the races, but in general, he has had a lot of bad luck. Now, in 13th, we have Ocon. Esteban has been pretty consistent, and even though he's had a lot of, I don't know, let's call incidents, let's call them incidents and misjudgments, and we saw that with Berman when they clashed together in the British Grand Prix, the last race. Still, though, he scored a lot of points for the team, so yeah, he's been pretty consistent. That's why he's 13th. Now in 12th, um, we have Gasly. The Alpine, along with Haas and Sauber, were for the majority of the season the worst cars. Haas and Sauber advanced. Alpine kinda didn't, but Gasly, as Ocon has had with the Haas, even though Ocon is a bit more consistent, I'll say. Um, yeah, Gasly has managed to score points on a semi-regular basis, and that's why he's 12th. 11th place goes to Lawson, and now Lawson has had a very difficult start to the season at Red Bull, but I feel like at Racing Bull says he has taken off. I mean, he starting scoring points is getting better and better in general. Of course, he's still being outmatched by his teammate Hajar, which is in 10th place, by the way, which has had a pretty good rookie first half of his rookie season. Of course, started badly with Australia, but continued really well, and I'm looking forward to seeing him perform maybe better in the second part of the season. Now, ninth place goes to Nico Hülkenberg. Why? He started really well season in Australia, then of course Sauber had that slump, which probably put them for a few races at least the worst car on the grid, and the worst team on the grid as well. But the last four races, amazing work. Spain was brilliant, overtaking Hamilton in Ferrari in the final stages to grab P5. Canada and Austria were so pretty decent, bringing home points, and of course, they were so magical. Finally, first podium in Great Britain, which everybody has talked about. So yeah, that's why he's ninth. Now, eighth place goes to Albon, and you probably know why. He's the best of the rest in the championship, and even though he's kind of fallen off a cliff in the last few races, it's mostly due to engine trouble and a lot of retirements. Now, in seventh place is Lewis Hamilton, or Sir Lewis Hamilton, actually, because he's a Sir. In a Ferrari, he's expected to do much better than he has done. Grabbing a sprint win in his second season for the team was amazing for him and a huge moment that could have ended better he have had he kept the momentum going forward, but the disqualification the next day and then kind of a slump. I mean, he was beaten by Antonelli a lot, and of course, he kind of recovered in the, let's say, the last part of the first part of the season. So, like the last 4 or 5 races, and almost grabbed his first Ferrari podium in a race in Great Britain. In sixth place is Antonelli. For a rookie to get a podium in his ninth race is amazing, and you know he actually hasn't done that badly for the rest of the season. I mean, he's had very few, very few mishaps. Maybe, uh, maybe of course Monaco, where he crashed in qualifying, or of course Austria, where he crashed into Verstappen. But that's the last few four, 5 races have been either very good or very bad. Because I mean, Austria he retired, can I get third place? And no, actually, Spain he retired with an engine failure. Canada he had third place. Austria he crashed into Verstappen, and Great Britain he got crashed into by Hajar. So basically, it's been a hit or miss for him. Leclerc has fifth place because Ferrari should be doing better realistically. Still though, he's grabbed podiums, and other than Russell and Verstappen and Antonelli, but Antonelli and Hülkenberg but also only one time. He's been the only driver to actually get consistent podiums, especially in races 5 to 10, that period of time. Other than the McLarens, of course. McLarens have been dominant. Russell gets fourth place. Why? Because compared to he has been the same kind of pattern with Leclerc. He has had mishaps in Monaco and in Great Britain with the strategy in both races, but still he's grabbed the win. Something that Ferrari hasn't done this season so far. In third, we have Norris. Norris has done brilliantly in the last few races, but the fact that somebody which entered Formula One later and like four, no, actually 5 seasons later than him is beating him to the title currently, though it's a close margin. Still, yeah, he's had mishaps. He's come back in the last 4 5 races, but still, yeah, he's probably worse than Piastri so far this season. Second is Verstappen. He's dragged the fourth best car, a Red Bull, and managed to grab wins with it. That's amazing. That's nothing more I can say. And Piastri is first because in his only third F1 season, he dominated the first part of the season. Now Norris has come back. He seems to have loosened his goal, of course, in Great Britain, but still, the first part of the season is kind of unmatchable by Norris and by Verstappen. Of course, Verstappen 2023 was another um, creation and something very different. So, anyways, this is my ranking of, and this was my ranking of all 21 drivers that have participated in a Grand Prix so far this season. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.